Hey folks, so we just got finished looking at how to do this with some contact paper, and over here I've put some just black tape, black drafting tape. Don't use duct tape, it's going to be too strong, but you can find black drafting tape around. And again, one of the things you can do, I'll do it this time with ruler, is make cuts straight through and straight across. If you have a really crummy sheet of light paper, the cuts won't work, but in this case I've got a piece of poster board on there, so it should work pretty well. I have not rubbed the tape down really hard. I think I would do that after I finish the piece. So right now I've lightly pressed it to keep it in place, but not so hard that I won't be able to peel up every other one to get a cool positive and negative pattern. So I'm just eyeballing some cuts to make. And checkerboards are a little bit boring, so I'm going to just cut a curvilinear line, and I'm cutting through the whole thing. It's in black. If I was doing this for an assignment, I probably would have worked on some tracing paper, and I would probably be cutting through tracing paper, transferring the design on my tracing paper if I was serious about the grade that I wanted to get. But I'm going to not get graded. And besides that, I just want to show you this technique, so I'm going to do some pretty straightforward things so that it doesn't get confusing for you. So I am again being careful to cross each of these shapes in a cross-like pattern. I'm almost screwing up there. Let me get very close to screwing up, and then you can see what a mistake looks like by your teacher. Now what happens is, because I've done every other one of them, I can just take my knife. Oh, it pulled up from the beginning. I didn't test this. I should have tested it. I might have pushed down pretty hard on the edge as I undid the tape. Now, one of the nice things about this is that if you get mistaken places like that, you can just go somewhere else in the board, cut out that shape, use the black piece of tape if you want for the pattern for it, put the black piece of tape down somewhere else, trace around it, cut it, and you can usually insert it in there pretty easily. So what you're starting to see is that the tape itself gives me a really nice clean edge. And if I want something that looks a little bit like a checkerboard in there, because I like having the fluid line against the checkerboard, I like that effect, then this will work really actually pretty quickly once you get it going. What happens is, if you keep it going where you are always crossing in an X and not in a Y, it doesn't matter where you start, because it will always automatically come up black, white, black, white, black, white. That was from something I previously drew. When I come over here to get a place right here, I'm going to show you something to pay attention to. So let me work my way over, however slowly. I actually find this relaxing. Some people find it makes them a little crazy. I have a black shape here and a black shape here, and it appears as though these two black shapes are running together. It's because I made a line and I almost came in. Here's the X. I almost came into the X. This is where I said I was going to screw up. So what I had to do was cut a little tiny shape here. And see what a pain in the butt it is? I should have moved the line over. I'll show you. And now the black and white will be correct. So sometimes you have to come back in here and cut out little extra shapes. I think the negative space would be a lot stronger if I just made it a little bit more bold here. Usually, if you make little knife lines like that, you can't see it in the finished piece. If you're doing this digitally, you just, get out your smudge tool and or your blend tool and blend it. So what will happen here is that the more I go, the more of the pattern. Now, you can do this freehand if you want, like I did, but if you use a pattern that you've designed, a good composition, you're going to be putting it on top and cutting through it, which means you get a lot of pieces left over. In order to keep track of where you're going, I always recommend that if you are going to cut up a pattern, real quickly trace another one, because it's really super useful to have the pattern you started with and then cut up the copy of it, have a master pattern going on. So just a little suggestion. You could photocopy it before you used it as a stencil piece, but if you cut it up and there's a way to make a copy of it before you cut it up, it may save your life one day. So here you see that I'm starting to get some shapes, and that the shapes are actually pretty particular, and you can get pretty small and detailed with them. Notice too that I'm staying away from making a shape of a cup or a shape of an eyeball or a shape of a... When you do that, the eyeball or the box or whatever you're making automatically becomes positive space because you're looking at the eyeball. And so it's really hard to make anything, see anything but the eyeball, and then you're not seeing positive and negative space. When you're looking at this practice right here, part of what I want you to do is see that negative space is as important as positive space. And so I would kind of like it if you got them confused at first. Like you get to a point where you can make a positive or a negative shape, and you can say it's white on black or it's black on white, but either way the design works. If you're doing that, then I've taught you to see in a really different way for you. And I would be so happy if you were seeing that way. So, I think these techniques are kind of for those of us who like to get OCD every once in a while and have things be really particularly nice and smooth and even. I would recommend trying to get a couple of knife blades. This is called a number 11, that kind of pointed blade. And if the blade gets dull, it'll tear instead of cut. And if you want really nice cuts, you might need to take the blade out and replace it. I keep a little tin where I keep all of the replacement blades. You can tell a blade needs replacing because you'll start seeing scratches on the end of it, and especially the point will look dull. Well, I keep a box of dull blades for when I want to cut like a rope or something, and then I switch off a lot into like really, really sharp blades. If you're finding that the poster board is tearing or the tape is tearing, it's because you've been using that knife end for too long. So that's my other tip of the day. Well, so I hope this gives you some idea about what you could do. You can certainly combine this with this if you want to, or do this on top of that if you want to. So some ideas to play around with. Bye.